See Us Out Here, Episode 3. I'm your host, NartOutHere. Joining me today is my co-host, Saga. What's up, Ben?
What's up, everyone?
And then I have 4 guests. The first guest is Nato, content creator, pro player, permanent stand-in. What's up, buddy?
Hey, man. What's up?
Next guest is Paladin. He is a current analyst, and he is also a very underrated YouTuber. Make sure to check him out. I'll put the link below in the description. What's up, Paladin? How are you?
Awesome. Wow, great to be here.
Thank you for coming on the show. And then our next guest is Mnmzzz, who is a senior writer for Dust2 US. What's going on, Mnmzzz? Thanks you for joining me on the show today.
Happy to be on, yeah.
And then our last guest is SolGoat, who is a former Rush B writer and current player in advance. I can't remember the name of your team, SolGoat. Sorry, what is
Victorum,
who's currently in. Are you in the upper playoffs bracket right now?
The upper semifinal for advance right now.
Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
So, the first topic we're going to cover is the weekly recap, and that's going to be roster changes. And the first roster change that we're going to talk about here is Team Liquid. Oh, here we go. So Team Liquid removed Shox and they removed their coach Adren, and they added, well, they didn't officially added Yakinder yet. And however, they did added coach Daps, and Yakinder will make his stand-in appearance at Cologne. What are you guys' thoughts on these two changes? Possibly 2 changes, you know?
I mean, to me, I think Shox was out the door for quite a while. He always looked uncomfortable, and I know we had that tweet longer from him, and you could very much see that, like, outside of the game, there's a huge problem in how he had to go about his time on an NA team, and I'm sure the culture in there doesn't necessarily lend itself to him being comfortable. But yeah, I think that this move works best for both parties. Hopefully Shox can find another team, because I personally still think he has a little bit of gas left in the tank. I just don't think that they used him in the correct way on Liquid. But there's not many places that he can really go, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you'd assume that like after all the burnout he was referencing with Liquid, he'd try to stick with a French team. So it'd be like Heat or Falcons, I feel like, would be the most likely teams for him to go to. But I don't know if like those teams are even like looking to make roster changes, or if like Shox would be asking for too much for that to even be like realistic. Because you'd feel like that'd be a pretty big issue for them.
But there were some rumors about Falcons making changes, right? Recently. I think it was like NBK coming in and someone else. Like, it was Armanek. Yeah. So NBK and Armanek in, and then it was like Kyogen and someone else who was out. So I don't know if there'll be even space for Shox, but yeah, I agree with you guys. Like, Shox definitely didn't look too comfortable. At the same time, like, I think, you know, Yakinder is like a really, really good fit for Liquid in terms of like roles and everything, and also it's probably the best place that Yakinder could feasibly go in the long term. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think it's really cool that he got the chance to play with them, because I think there were talks about like them going to JKS and Snacks already, and they were both like locked for the event or something like that.
Well, to expand on that, I feel like it's understood now that Yakinder was always their like primary pick for who they wanted to play with, for kind of obvious reasons. He's the most exciting free agent or person on the transfer market right now. The main issue with Yakinder is, of course, like the issue of sanctions. So I think Liquid, as we understand it now from our own reporting, is basically they tried to get Yakinder, but while they were doing that, they pursued basically every player they could possibly. So they tried to get, Snacks, they tried to get JKS. They asked, Evil Geniuses if they would lend one of their blueprint players. But ultimately, like, Yakinder was the main goal, but those were just in case they couldn't figure out a way to work it out with Virtus Pro in time, just because of the complications, where I think they ultimately let him just sort of go on like a $0 loan.
Interesting. I did not know that. But yeah, I was to touch base with what you said, Nato, about Ykinder. I think he fits really good. He can create a lot of space, which Team Liquid needs right now.
He'll be the aggressive guy. Well, Naf is pretty much one of the best like passive anchor type of guys who takes all the blunt, and Leash will be back to passive, kind of the mix, like passive aggressive type of role. They'll just be going crazy. I would love to see it, but obviously it's that VP Russian money crap. The lawyer talk where we don't know anything because we're not lawyers here. But if they can do it, they'll figure out a way to pick him up. We'll see.
Do you guys think this is a good roster moving forward?
Potentially? I mean, I think it can work, but the issue is obviously culture. Like now, it's another international player that you're bringing in. Like, how is he going to fit in? Is he going to feel comfortable? Mm-hmm. Is this like a 3 months thing? Is it like a 1 year thing?
Yeah.
Like it really, I don't know if Liquid has the proper protocols in set after like it leaves a bad taste in my mouth after Shox didn't necessarily feel comfortable on that team. That I'm hoping that Yekindar's a bit different. I mean, obviously he's much younger, so he's a little bit more malleable to like new ideas, new experiences. You know,
does he not have like a wife or kid? He's still single, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think
because the Shock situation, he was married, so that
he's a stepson, yeah. So like so and mind you, like Liquid and by extension the whole scene kind of did lie to him, where they were told him like straight up, we're gonna be spending a lot of time in Europe. Like that's how they thought the circuit was gonna pan out, and then. Or, excuse me, they thought, he was going to move to NA permanently because they were told that there would be way more events in there. There'd be all this qualification, all this stuff going on in North America. And then the scene is still so Europe-centric that he's having to constantly bounce back and forth and can't actually, settle anywhere. So it's like, it's, ultimately, like, they completely failed to accommodate him, which was kind of to be expected if you have a player who has roots in a different country.
I didn't know Shox was going through all this, so I kind of felt bad for him, as like a lot of people were like making fun of his performances,
I mean, he didn't even get the roles that he usually plays on Vitality and his previous teams. Like he was definitely out of his comfort zone even in the game. So it was kind of weird to see him like try to make up for it in game, and then like it doesn't help that in game also like he didn't actually have. Like he didn't feel comfortable at all, so I'm sure the outside also didn't help. But I just feel like it's a really bad look for everybody involved, and I hope that moving forward, Yekindar kind of settles in a little bit better. I think we should definitely talk about Daps though, because that is a move that I was hoping to see, just to see him in a team that seems a little bit more settled. Obviously, Evil Geniuses that has their own issues right now, and I don't think that the Orgulus project worked out as planned, but this is kind of the final like project I'd say that Daps we can kind of see what Daps can bring to the table as a coach, and I hope that we can actually see all of these players like the OCs and the Yekindars, like the more younger players, and see them feel a little bit more comfortable in tier 1, because they definitely need a guy like Daps to kind of make sure that the environment is very friendly and everybody can get along. And I think that chemistry is something that was sorely missing from Liquid for quite some time.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Daps on Liquid. Like, it's hard to speak about like how much like any coach does for a team and if he'll be like an improvement over a Dren or anything, but just like looking at Daps' past teams with like Gen G and
Energy.
Yeah. Gen G and Energy, like it's just, I don't know. It's really exciting to have the thought of him being able to just like be back in the top of North American CS again.
I mean, we don't have many like veterans in our scene remaining. Like we've lost Sean Gares, we've lost like a lot of like that kind of player that even if they don't provide that much firepower, like in game, like they could provide a lot of experience. We don't necessarily have that old guard as much anymore. And
like the Blades.
Yeah,
yeah.
just having somebody like a Daps on a team who's been through a lot of good, a lot of bad. He's kind of seen the high highs and the low lows. Like that's something that you would need to at least quell the older players like Naf and Alige. I'm sure they have his trust, and you also extend that trust out to the younger players who might not feel as comfortable at the higher levels like EOCs. So I think that it could really work in the long run, and we've already seen that he's been talking to a lot of like news outlets. I had the Dust 2 US one, the interview that you guys did, Mnmzzz, but he looked like he's very dialed in to make the hard changes if he has to, and try to like rise back to the top. And I'm excited to see if he can do that, because we really need a big NA team for the scene in general, right? Just to bring that much more hope back into the region.
Well, I think with that interview I did with him, the biggest thing he said in that within was that in terms of the power dynamic that Liquid will have moving forward, that really excites me, is that he says that the Liquid org has given him authority to, if not make changes, at least suggest changes and sort of be a counterbalance to Liege, because it definitely felt like the Shock's iteration of Liquid was sort of a Liege's team more than anything else. It definitely wasn't Adren's team. It wasn't, NAF's team. It was all built around, I think, a Liege. And I think that's almost a problem, because it seems like a Liege needs someone to sort of counterbalance him on a team.
Yeah.
And I think back in the day, Nitro provided that sort of counterbalance where, conflict breeds excellence. But with Nitro coming back, it almost feels like he's more like subsidiary to a Liege, especially now that Liege is an owner of Liquid, a partial owner. I'm hoping Daps is someone who won't be afraid to, disagree with the Liege and sort of take the team in a direction that is more, conducive to results rather than just pleasing a Liege.
So I think everyone here can agree that Daps to Liquid is a good move.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I also agree.
Now, what's next for Adren? Do you think he's going to maybe go to EG, Valorant? Like, what's his options?
Mythic.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I mean, he's left that team and rejoined it so many times. I'm sure he has open arms there with Flom and crew.
All right.
I think it all just depends on what Adren wants to do. I don't know.
Who's the coach for complexity?
JT.
No,
TC.
Oh wait, no, not JT. Yeah. TC. Yeah.
But I don't think he'd leave, right? Just because of the synergy that he has with JT.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. Unless there's big changes in that end.
Yeah.
Probably, like, because it gets to be anyone, it's probably going to be EG or back to Mythic.
Well, I mean, NATO, is Adren someone who has like any currency in Europe? Do people care about, his perspective on the game in Europe? I haven't really heard many Europeans talk. I've never really heard a European like give him much, shine. So do Europeans really care about him as a coach? Is it someone that interests them at all?
Yeah, well, it's a funny question. Like, I'm letting you guys speak a little bit because you are way more into like the NA scene than I am. Yeah, obviously. And I was sitting here thinking, like, I'm trying not to come across as rude, because I don't mean it as in like it's not like a diss or anything. But I'm sitting here thinking a little bit like, he's been in and out of Liquid so many times now, and what has he really accomplished? Like, obviously there have been times where it's been going really good, but yeah, it's hard from an outside perspective, an EU perspective as well, to kind of look at him and just say downright that like this guy has done a phenomenal job. So I feel like it could be that he's an amazing coach. It could also be that he is a coach that doesn't have a whole lot of an impact. But just for me personally, I at least I haven't noticed him enough to know. Like, I would not be able to judge his ability, basically. And so I would imagine there's a lot of other EU teams that feel a little bit the same. I would say, though, that for me it's a big plus. Like, his personality seems like a super good one for a coach. Like, my perspective, or at least like my view of him, is that he's like a nice guy, but he also is a hardworking guy, and those two things are, in my opinion, super important for a coach to have. Because you want a coach that's not being too harsh, but you also want someone who motivates the players, right, to perform at their best ability. So, yeah, I definitely. It's not the guy that would be at the top of my list if I was to hire a coach, simply because I don't know enough about him. But yeah, personality-wise, he seems like a nice guy, and I would love to work with him in the future. I just have a hard time judging his like coaching ability because I just don't know enough.
Because you had that one stretch where he won the Grand Slam when Liquid was on fire, and then kind of right now it's just kind of like stalemate. Like, no one knows what anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a mixed bag. He seems like he's a pretty chill guy. No one knows anything really. Like, is he that impactful? Like, he's better than some other people, obviously.
I'd almost say he's like too passive in the sense that I don't know if he could really fit in with the big personalities of like a top tier European team, because he's sort of the guy who helps with strats and the guy who helps with, honestly, he's always been criticized for not being very good at the emotional support. Like, you'll see him when the team's down, he's also just like sitting in the chair, like leaning back. He doesn't, he rides the wave of the team's emotions, which I don't really feel like a coach should be doing. I feel like a coach should always be trying to uplift his team.
Yeah.
And I don't see if he could, like, Adren as a coach in itself was because of the particular circumstance of Liquid, in the sense that, he was he and Elige played together, and he was, his original like leader. So it's like he's a good fit for Elige, but I don't know if he's like a good fit for, any other team. And the only other option, I mean, I think we all kind of suggested it, is going to Evil Geniuses. But do we, he's a nice guy. Would I really wish that on him? Like, it's like what the hell did he do wrong to end up on, EG? Like, God forbid. Like,
hey, who knows? They're going. Speaking, that's a good topic to move over to Mnmzzz. EG, you guys, Dust2 here wrote a article that they could lose their 2 stars, Breeze and Cirque, in September. And you want to tell us more about this?
My understanding of it is that, like the article says, Breeze and Cirque, their contracts are coming up in the next couple months, and there's really no indication at this point that they've chosen to re-sign with Evil Geniuses. I think it can be said also that there's a good chance Stewie's also out of the lineup based on everything he's been saying, based on everything he's been doing, playing more Valorant than playing CS, going on Twitter, going on Twitch and crying about his circumstances, saying, I'm not an IGL, I'm not a captain. It's like, if he's saying all these things and these 2 players are looking at the door, then what is the team's really future as you look to it? Like, you're losing your IGL despite him not being good. You're losing your Opera and you're losing, one of your stars. You're gonna be left with Russian automatic, and I don't even know if you can rebuild around those pieces, because what are you gonna do? Bring in people from the the Blueprint Academy teams?
Mm-hmm.
It's
well,
all very.
It does kind of suggest that, like, the whole reason, like, if they're potentially losing 3 people in 3 months, then like it does kind of make sense for why they'd want to just bring in 2 of the best teams, like the 2 of the best North American domestic teams, outside of like Liquid and Complexity, obviously, and just like kind of bring all 10 of those players in on trial and see if any of them are actually good enough for them to sign and move up to the main roster.
So how fluid is that whole Blueprint thing? Because to me, it feels like they could actually like have a bunch of iterations and test the waters with like, the Carpe Diem roster and the PA1 as they please. Because I mean, Russian Automatic are pretty malleable players. Like, I feel like they're willing to kind of go with the flow and play with younger players. Like, they don't need to be satiated like a Stewie 2K perhaps. But if like the system was fluid enough, maybe they could test it as much as they need to make sure that they have the players that they want and the personalities kind of fit. And you need somebody, you need a coach that is willing to actually put in the work to do all of that. But they let go of Malik, so who am I to say?
I'm gonna be real with you. I think they're lying. Like, I think it's a load of shit. Like, I don't think there's actually like this like fluid transitional system where players can move in and out, in and out. Oh, we're gonna actively work to build the best roster possible. Obviously, if you lose 3 players, you're gonna move 3 players up. But I don't think they're gonna be like, today we'll use Podalone and tomorrow we'll use Hex. Like, I don't think that's like realistic for a team. And they even said themselves, this roster built around Stewie is supposed to be the lineup till the end of the year. Which obviously, if the players go, that's not gonna happen anymore. But
Well, I think they're saying
see it
it's
as
more of
realistic at
like
all.
I think they're saying it's more of like not like a 15-man roster in the way that like 6-man rosters were a thing, but more just like, oh, I don't know,
We have 3 teams.
Ponalone just, I don't know, wants to go to his friend's wedding and won't be able to make this event, or he's feeling really burnt out, so we're just gonna move in Wiz from the Carpe Diem roster to go to this one European event for a month, or this one boot camp, Like, I think
Is that
if anything, it's
realistic
more
long term? Like,
I don't know that it is, but I don't think they're ever really intending to like have it like actually be a 15-man roster that'll like change players mid-series or something like
I don't think
Jeff
they have a
Shear's kind of
plan.
implying.
They got
I
it,
don't-
in my opinion. Yeah.
Yeah, because like
But I mean, it's like the
conspiracy-
same way if someone gets like injured or something, like it's a soccer club or something. Someone gets injured, you just move someone up from your youth teams to cover the position for a month. Like I could see it doing something like that.
My conspiracy theory with Evil Geniuses is they don't really like they've been like dodging obligations to really talk about this team. They haven't really said a whole lot about how Blueprint will function. I know I've struggled to get official comments out of them. Other journalists have too. And I think at the end of the day, it's like I don't think they really know what the plan is, so they don't really want to like say anything to be like, especially considering people are going to inevitably ask the question, well, if Stewie isn't, fit for purpose, are you going to pull one of the IGLs from this team? Like, is Ben going to be called up? And I think they kind of know he's not ready to be called up, so they don't want to even like, suggest that's a possibility because they'll look like idiots if they go to Pro League with Ben Lead as the IGL and they get smashed again. Like,
the problem is
questions that they don't have answers to.
Yeah, the problem is that they can't get smashed, right? Like they need to get at least a win. They can't come in last again because of the whole the fact that if they come in last for again, they'll be under question whether or not they can keep their partner status. So there's so much like this is probably the worst time for this to happen, but they kind of dug their own grave because they've been doing this for a while now, and I think it's all going to come back to them, and I don't think that we're going to see much of EG very soon because as far as I see it, the teams that came through conference could also beat EG right now. Like that's where
definitely.
Yeah. But like it's also just like will Pro League actually because it's only bringing the spot up for review. So like is EG spot actually in jeopardy or is that all just like a facade to try to motivate them or to just like make it look like Pro League isn't really just a franchise league that you pay to be in, even though it kind of is at this point.
I mean, I don't think they would ever cut someone, but yeah, it's definitely meant to like put the fucking,
I don't think they're ever going to cut a team when they've made it kind of clear that they really want to reach out to the North American market and like all the sponsors over here,
All right, guys. I think that's enough about EG. It'll be interesting to follow as the player break comes to see what moves they make.
So the conference spot to Cloud9. That's something you could do if you really want to.
That would be nice.
So the next roster move that we're gonna discuss here is Fnatic adding Heap on trial. Heap, who was on the former Dignitas team, Dignitas disbanded their CSGO team, and for a while now, when I watched like Freiberg interviews, he said, or as well as Forrest, them two would say like Heap is like the next big Swedish star. So I'll start this off with NATO. What are your thoughts on this move and Heap trialing for Fnatic?
Well, I think it's hard. I understand that. I mean, if people from his team say that he's like the next big thing and like he's the standout guy and stuff like that, I mean, I'm gonna have to believe it, right? But I sort of don't want to. I feel like personally, I haven't seen enough from him. Like it's clear the guy has got a good aim, but I don't feel like I've seen a whole lot more than that. And just this Fnatic roster, I honestly don't really get it because you have basically your best player Mnmzzz now taking over as the IGL, and I think definitely Mnmzzz seems like a type of player who is sort of more smart than just an aim. Like honestly, the guy has both. I think he's really really good, but he is definitely a smarter guy than just like a guy who runs around and just clicks heads, right? But I feel like you are stunting his growth in a way by making him IGL. And I don't understand when you have like a very successful Copenhagen Flames roster to pick from, why are you picking sort of the two star player roles and then leaving the IGL when the one thing you need is an IGL? Like from what I've seen now from Hooksy, what I've heard is that he's extremely hardworking, right? The guy will put in like more than 10 hours every single day, every day of the week. And you have a guy who has now proven he has made it to the major, which I would say the first time they got a little bit lucky with matchups and stuff like that. They obviously won some good matches, but it felt a little bit like a fluke. But the fact that they did it again and even, got as far as they did the second time around, I didn't feel like they got lucky in the same way with matchups, honestly. They beat a lot of really good teams. And also in best of threes and stuff, like I was really impressed with them. So I don't understand why you would sort of, I assume on purpose, not take the core of that team, but only take two players when the third would like be the literal missing puzzle piece. in your roster. That just doesn't make sense to me. So I don't know if it's like an economic thing that they prefer to take Heap because he's cheaper, or that they don't want to pay like a buyout. I'm not sure exactly how Dignitas says. Maybe they've taken a small buyout, but they're, from what I understand, closing sort of the CSGO roster. So like, yeah, for me, it's just to conclude, kind of, it's that I don't think Heap is the fix, or like I don't think he is the last person they're gonna change. Let's say it like that. I don't understand why you wouldn't go for someone like Hooksy when you actually have the opportunity to.
I mean, like the organization of Fnatic is supposed to be like one of the like hallmark organizations of like CS ever, and the fact that they are not willing to spend the money to actually pick up a player or players rather, and that they don't have any idea or vision as to how they want the team to be, and you have who is it? There's a specific manager that came out and said that
Forberg?
like we who
Are you talking about the
Vorborg.
Flames manager?
no the Fnatic
Or-
the Fnatic manager.
Samuelson or Samuel?
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah,
but I think, or I think it was Karn.
Oh, okay.
But he came out and he was like, we really want to like put all our time into the CS:GO division and make sure that it's like winning again. And I don't know, I just feel like you're picking through scraps and not picking through the cream of the crop, and that's really concerning to me, just in the long run. Like it feels like they're sending this roster to like its inevitable end, and they looked decent. Like I won't lie, they looked okay at Pinnacle Cup Championship. But I don't think this team is going to ever contend for titles. I think that's pretty safe to say. And you had a Fnatic roster that, when they were full Swedish, they were doing very, very well for themselves. And now where are we? We're basically saying like, oh, maybe they can be a playoff team. Maybe they can, make a semifinal run here or there. But I don't think we'll ever really consider them to be title contenders, and that's really concerning to me. That Fnatic as an organization is kind of just like fallen through the cracks. I don't know. It upsets me a little bit, at least.
Do you think? I mean, I think it's no secret that Fnatic doesn't have the biggest war chest relative to, you have a world where there's like G2s, Vitalities, big European clubs like that have unlimited war chests for CS:GO. Or Fnatic, I feel like it's definitely like a legacy brand, but it doesn't have the money to really back up being that legacy brand. So I wonder if they're sort of constrained about how much they can pay. But at the same time, like you said, I don't think buying more Copenhagen Flames players would be that expensive. I know I saw something from Vorborg earlier today that said the whole team was on sale for like 170,000 euros. So something like 160,
It was 160. Yeah, 160. Yeah.
Which surely that means you can buy one of the players for less than that. So it's like, what's the issue there? I wonder, and now forgive me, NATO, but I wonder if the issue at hand here is that they don't want the team to be like full Danish because of like the emotional distress it causes Swedish fans. Like when like for NiP, for example, when they signed like Devi, it was sort of a betrayal of the Swedish scene. It's sort of a tacit admission that there's not enough Swedish talent to build a winning team. I wonder if they realize that if we have like 3 Danish players, the flag goes from Sweden, or it goes from Europe to Danish.
Yeah, but was the UK flag really better?
I see. That's the thing, though. It's like, I mean, it could ultimately come down to we say they would try to get this player, but we never know if Hooksy is, being coveted by someone else. I mean, there's definitely more exciting places he could go right now. He's a very, in-demand IGL. So it could be Fnatic wanted him but couldn't get him, so they had to sort of settle on, on Heap, or, couldn't get Zyphon or couldn't get anyone else, really.
I'm worried about Crims as well. Like, it could be an ego thing as well, right? Like, he blew up the previous lineup. It could just be that he might not want to play with these players, and it looks like he's kind of had like the keys to the castle or something like that, like where he just kind of wants whoever to come in and go out as he pleases. So that kind of worries me too, whether that could be a reason why Hooksy's not here either.
I mean, do you think it comes down to just him, like hit him with his good friends? He hits up Forrest and Freiberg on the on Twitter and is like, I need, I want to play with this Heap guy. What do you think? And I give him like a really high review, and he convinces Fnatic. He's like, well, he's a free agent. He's Swedish. And my good friend, Forrest, who I just played Pinnacle Cup with, says he's the straight mustard. Like, should we just get him? Like,
that's a good point.
Mind you, he isn't signed right now. So if he blows up in the next couple, events, they can just get rid of him and sign someone else. So like,
I mean, the other thing to look at with Heap is like if you just look at the Fnatic roster in general, like let's say they don't go for Hooksy just because they're really confident in Mezzi's calling. Like then they have a fragging IGL, and then they have 2 Flamestar players and Crims. Then it's just like what really it's all. I think like the main thing is that they just need someone that'll fill the role that they need specifically. And like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Keep was necessarily like insane stats wise on Dignitas either, and I don't think he's had
Wasn't he
like
a
a
hard
super.
entry?
That's what I
I
thought
thought
too,
he was
but I
a
wasn't
passive player.
100% sure. But
I don't know.
either
I was
way,
thinking.
like
No, go ahead,
you have
Sol.
to hope that they just that like after talking to like Forrest and Freiburg, as Jeff was saying, that they just know that the role that he's gonna need to play for the team is the one that he is comfortable with and is gonna fit well into. Whereas, like that's the only thing I can think of for why they'd pick Heap in particular over like another Copenhagen Flames player or even like someone else from Dignitas.
But to touch base with what you said, Nato, about Mezzi's performance being IGL, like I've already seen like his performance dip off already. But that's to understand as well. Like he just transitioned over to IGL. But as like before that though, when he wasn't IGL, he was like super consistent fragger that was making his way up with like super high potential.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
Even on that Cloud9 roster, like he never looked like he was that uncomfortable. Like he's born for tier 1, and that's something that we figured out very early on. And I don't know. My first reaction to it, and even after a long time, is just like I don't think Mezzi belongs in that role because it's just wasting his prime. And we don't know, like we will never know until it's over as to when Mezzi's prime was, and this could just make it go away even faster. And that's something that we never want young stars to kind of just erode away. So hopefully, I mean, I can see a world where this works and Mezzi feels comfortable because he's definitely smart enough to make it work because like he's always been a cerebral player. But I'm worried that we're gonna have some form dip off that's bigger than what we've seen right now, like a massive dip.
Yeah.
And I don't. I mean, I know. I can only say time will tell. You know.
Yeah, good point.
Also, another thing I want to mention, like just popped up in my head, but I remember before he joined Cloud9, I was talking to my agent, Jerome from Prodigy Agency, name dropping a little bit here, but he told me actually before he joined Cloud9, he said Missy is the biggest talent I've seen since Suvo.
Oh wow!
And yeah,
Really?
I mean that is a pretty big statement. Obviously, this was some time ago, but you saying that he was born for tier 1, I would have to agree. And I've also seen like something that really surprised me back in the day when he joined Cloud9. I remember they were playing like an aim lab type thing, and you had like incredible aimers like Voxic, and you had also Isatek, who I also think is an incredible aimer. He's a high sense player as well, which it gives some benefit in aim lab. And still Messi like crushed them all just when he just joined the roster. And I was sitting there thinking, like, how is it even possible, even though it's just aim lab, but how is it possible that a guy with like 0 experience at this level, comes in and dominates like an aim competition against players who are supposed to be some of the strongest aimers? Like at that time, Voxic had just come from being, I guess number 8 or something on the top 20 list with mouse spots. And like, he's just known for having like incredible mechanics, right? So I was really surprised. And I feel like, would you make Suvo, for example, IGL? I don't think you would. So like, if you have a player who's that bright of a talent, I feel like you have to use him to what he's good at, right? You need to put him in like that star fragger role where he can do it better than anybody else. If you make him like the brain of a team, it might work, but I feel like there are some Galaxy brains out there who maybe don't have that same type of like mechanical talent. And would you not rather like sort of isolate the two, like have the Galaxy brain be a Galaxy brain and the like mechanical demon just focus on that,
Let me ask you this, Nato. So Kita is the coach, and you've worked with Kita when you stood in with Complexity at League, right? Do you think he can help him transition? Like, I don't know much about Kita as a coach. Can you tell us more about Kita?
Oh, I mean, I only had a short week with him. He was, from what I remember, a very nice guy. I mean, he was a presence that you definitely felt. Like, he was not just quiet the whole time. He definitely felt more like a coach than an analyst. I feel like there's a lot of coaches that feel just like an analyst but have the coaching job. I remember him, obviously preparing things and stuff like that. But in terms of how deep his like game knowledge goes, I would not really be able to tell you.
Okay.
But I know he works, with Cloud9, not Cloud9 Complexity, obviously, for quite a long time. And from what I assume, I kind of half remember, I would say, like Blamif, I imagine specifically asked for Kita to come to that team, and so knowing Blamif, he would only do that if he thought he was good.
Sure.
He's not the type of guy who does favors to people that he, to just friends. Like if you're not good and if you're gonna hold him back in his career, you don't have any space in his career. Like that's how it is, and I respect that.
All right, thank you for sharing that piece of information. We're gonna move on to Spirit adding Wonderful for Dexter's replacement. For Spirit, they removed Dexter, or was it Dexter who asked, or Spirit wanted Dexter to live in Serbia for 9 months? Is that correct?
Yeah,
and
he wanted to not live in Serbia, so he benched himself.
And then, so we saw him stand in for OG. He's looking for a team, and in the meantime, Spirit picked up Wonderful, who is is he Ukrainian?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I know he during the whole war he moved out to Germany, I think it was, or somewhere he got moved with the help of from Face It, I think. I remember.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. I don't know the location.
Yeah,
but I think you're right.
And then he's been just playing. He's been just streaming and playing FPL. And Spirit had picked him up. I don't know too much about Wonderful and what teams he's played prior. Does anybody want to fill me in? Does anybody know much about Wonderful?
Before this, he played for Hellraisers, which was it was like an okay team. It was kind of like a budget lineup for them with a lot of young Ukrainians. With that, I mean, he's been out of action for a while because Hellraisers did have to cease operations after the invasion. So I don't really know a whole lot about him either as a player. I think Hellraisers was his first like true team outside of maybe just like some CIS mixes, but I think he's high. I think people in the CIS highly rate him outside of that. So
yeah. So Koi in the chat says he was moved out to Berlin from Face It for 4 months. He's back in Ukraine, and he said he had offers from literally everyone. So that speaks of his potential.
Must be nice.
It's. I mean, tier 1 AWP or tier 1 capable operas are just a dime a dozen right now, or not a dime a dozen. Very rare right now, and you're obviously going to take a huge hit if you're Spirit to lose Dexter, and you've lost like a huge skill gap, which has to be filled very quickly, and you need to make sure that you have a player that is that ballsy, and it's a risk. There's no two ways to say it. Like it's a huge risk. This last official was in February, and now you're making him debut on a Cologne stage. Like it's not going to be easy, but I mean, the one thing I can say is that CIS players don't feel pressure. Like I don't know what it is, but they just don't.
Except for Gambit.
Yeah, except for Gambit. Yeah, except for Gambit. But I mean, Spirit players themselves, like they didn't look pressured at all. And I'd like to think that might transfer over to this guy, but who knows? Each player is different.
He's a young prospect, so it's easier to get the young prospect. They usually do pretty good if he has potential. Kind of works for every sports organization, sports club. The young guys get primed to that spot. They usually perform. Sometimes they fade, but if he performs, he's going to be a hot commodity like Dexter. So I can see it working.
I have I'm working with a website currently, and I'm making like a ton of videos. So in terms of exactly this topic, I'm like super up to date. Like I've just made a Spirit video talking about like why they did so well at the major. And I also just made a video about the top 10 future stars where Wonderful actually featured. So I really have been like yeah, I also played actually Wonderful only a couple of months ago. Not a couple, but like a few months ago. When I played Wonderful, he was like super extremely passive, like hyper bait. Like it was actually unreal. Like I won the match. It was just like a mixed team. I think I had the highest rating on my team or something like that. It was a rating
He's
of
got to
1.
put that out. Put it
Yeah,
out there.
no, I had a rating of 1, so it is not anything
won, man.
special. And Wonderful had like a rating of 1.3, even though he lost like 2-1 in close maps, you know. And I was just thinking like, okay, this kid is obviously good, but if he's playing like this, you know, there's also a reason he's up there in the terms of the numbers, right? But I recently watched some demos of him, and those traits that I saw in that match against me were not like at all how it was in those demos. Like he was running in front a lot. He was like when you get into those scenarios where someone has to create the space, but whoever does it kind of sucks for him a little bit. It was actually really often that Wonderful was the one doing it, and a lot of the time it was, you know, him just running around with an AK or something. So like to me, he seems like a really well-rounded guy, but also he's capable, you know, of like, I guess before he was like kind of in a worse team and he had to be the star. But I'm pretty sure that if he comes into Spirit, we will see him trying more things than just sitting in the back, right? And I think also with Spirit, because I just made a video on them, I know that their kind of system is like just them taking timings and like basically playing really simple Counterstrike, but playing really team-based. And with him coming into that team, I think also he will be set up for success a lot because he has so many aggressive riflers who are willing to go in first and like willing to take like the shit rolls and so on. So I would not be surprised to see him actually just perform right off the bat, because I think Spirit is, as an AWP player, one of the best teams to get into right now. I guess one of the top teams, simply because you have so many aggressive riflers who are creating like so much space just for you. And when I watched the Spirit demos, even though Dexter was like great, he felt more like a system player in that he was like just going through the motions and obviously doing a great job at that. But the people who are like the playmakers on this team, they are the riflers. And so coming into that, it's way easier to get adjusted fast. You won't have to make too many like split-second decisions. You just have to do your job, basically.
Really good insight. Thank you, NATO, for that. So moving forward here, next roster change is Heroic adding Yabby officially. I know we talked about it last week. It was rumored that Refresh was being removed and Yabby was possibly being added, but a couple days ago it was confirmed. The former Flames player being brought in for Refresh. What do you guys think about this move?
I mean, trajectory for Heroic was kind of on the downturn for quite some time. It looked like they needed to make a roster move, and I was actually worried that they wouldn't like pull the trigger and actually make a roster move because they just wanted to keep trying to push the 5 to win a LAN, but then they finally did with the PCC. But I know it's not a tier 1 LAN per se, it's more like tier 1.5, but it's still a LAN victory, and I think that's when they realized, you know, I think the move was probably already happening at that point, but I think this move was probably for the better overall. Yabby makes the most sense. You'd want a little bit more of an anchor player, and I think that he can definitely do that. And Refresh's form was kind of dipping as well, so I think it's good for Yabby that he gets an opportunity like this. And now it's kind of like, okay, there are really no excuses that you can point towards if you're Heroic to start winning titles. Like it's been some time now. Cologne's the prime opportunity to do it, and if they don't make a deep run here and screw up their bracket like they've done a couple of times, I think it's like now or never now in my eyes for Heroic as a system.
They plateaued. They've been, you see them plateauing for a while. They had to make the move. Makes sense. And Refresh has been kind of on the downturn, like you said. It's like I think everyone kind of agrees with that.
Have you played with Yabby before, NATO? Or do you know much about Yabby?
I don't know too much about him. I can sort of share a funny story.
Go right ahead.
Like, yeah, no, I don't actually know. I've heard it. I assume it to be true. Just that back in the sort of old Copenhagen Flames lineup with Asilion. From what I knew, they were picking between like keeping Yavi or keeping Dafu. And apparently they were initially going to go for Dafu, and he actually thought that he was going to be part of the lineup. But then right at the like last moment, they switched and decided to keep Yavi instead. And I just think it's such a like cool story if that is actually true. Like I've heard it from let's call it semi-biased sources, but
Okay.
I still believe that it's probably sort of true because Yavi was not performing that well at that moment, and it's just so cool to think, you know, how small decisions can just change the course of an entire career. Like Yabi staying there got him to the major with Copenhagen Flames, right? And even twice. And then shortly after, like now he's getting, the call up to Heroic. It's just crazy to me that he would not be anywhere near this if he would have been removed from that team at that moment. But they decided to give him a little bit extra time, and he really found himself in that team. So I think that's really cool. But something that I'm going to be interested to see with this is also that even though I feel like Refresh has been pretty underwhelming, especially at like the big events and in the big matches, I have heard from Peacemaker, who I work with in Complexity, also in Heroic, but it was recently in Complexity, who said that what he really liked about Refresh was that he was obviously a good player, but mainly that he's giving like really good, he called it service info, that as the sort of like lurk player or like a player on like the outskirts of the map, right? He would often set up the play on his side of the map before his teammates rotate over. So like if the caller says on like, okay, let's go out monster now, he would be like, yeah, he just threw the smoke, he could be on the left here, I suggest we throw flash here and go. Like he would almost be like calling in his area, if that makes sense. And sometimes maybe he saw like a gap, like yeah, he moloed, but I heard him step here, that means he's, you know, blah blah, and then we can go monster now or something. Like his information giving was so good that it was almost like he was a caller in his own area of the map. And that's something that I feel like an 18-year-old Yabi will not be able to do. So it probably means that the rest of the team will have to step up more. At least there will be less kind of key information given there. And I'm a little bit interested to see how that will work out, because you might get a guy who has a little bit more firepower in Yabi. I think it's pretty comparable, but you might get a little bit more firepower in Yabi. But I'm curious to see how like the mid-round decisions are going to be affected by Refresh going out. But because from what I've heard, he's like a really communicative guy who helps set up like the mid-round on his side of the map.
Thanks for your insight on that. So, go ahead.
I feel like it could be interesting. You kind of wonder where like Refresh will land next after this. I have no insight on that. I think it's too early to really say like if rumors. But there is just like a glut of Danish players right now that are all just sitting in the transfer market. I wonder if you could like tempt some org to pick up a Danish roster and build around that, because it is actually unreasonable. Like how if let's say if Valda doesn't go to Australia, it's like it's been intimated that he might or might not more recently. You have him sitting in transfer market. You have a Refresh sitting in transfer market. You have Nico sitting in transfer. You have Mither sitting on Apex Rebels as a coach. You could take him and build something around him. God, you have you have Gade sitting in Big's bench right now. Like you have all these like.
Don't forget this guy.
I'm sitting pointing myself on the camera.
All right, pal. Let's wait till we get to letter N. I'm scrolling down. All right.
Doing the alphabet. Come on.
You could probably lure Bird from God away if you really wanted to. Acor sitting on the bench right now. Like, there's a lot of exciting Danish pieces just sitting in the transfer market right now, and I kind of wonder like what would be next for him, whether he goes like to international lineup or convinces to build like a new.
Back to his third stint on Copenhagen Flames, maybe.
Yeah, they build a new Copenhagen Flames and just refresh again, third time. But I wonder, speaking of that, like with Vorberg leaving Copenhagen Flames, like I don't think they really have a future as like an org, because he was kind of as far as I understand, he was kind of like the builder of all the teams that were relevant. So I kind of wonder, like, I mean, if people are smart, like they headhunt Vorberg to be like the talent scout, and then like an org builds a team around Vorberg and whoever he wants to be his coach. Like that's what I would see as like the insane like football manager route. I would take it.
Completely agree, by the way. Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Mnmzzz. So Lucan was their former opper, and he's not with the team no more. And Mnmzzz picked up NQZ, who played. He's a 17-year-old potential star here who played with B4. Anybody know about NQZ or any input on NQZ?
I mean, I don't know much about him personally, but I will say the system and the methods that Mnmzzz have done to stay relevant in like tier 1, or at least getting close to tier 1, is really, really remarkable. Like getting Max to become an IGL after Try leaving, and then getting a guy who hadn't played any officials to op, who wasn't even an opper. Like they made all of these crazy situations and setbacks work so well. They got really close to winning Challenger. Like I believe they made semifinals there. They they qualified for the major as well. It's just a lot of cool results from them. So you can definitely tell that they're doing something over there. I think Knack is coach there, right?
Zach, close.
Zach, not Knack, Zach, yeah. And yeah, you know, the core of that team is very young and they have a long future for them, but they've always shown that they can kind of get through anything. And so far, like NQZ looks really good. I think they're actually taking Fury to 3 maps again in their decider at RooBet. So like there is a lot to like about Mnmzzz. I've been a huge fan ever since their big run in February, and I have complete faith that they figured out that this guy is the next best thing, and surely they'll have good results to follow.
Well, an underrated element of this move is, so there's this guy named TGE who was NQZ's coach on B4, and he got signed to be Mnmzz's analyst. So theoretically, like it's a guy, you know, they bring NQZ in, and then they also bring TGE in. So it's someone who has like a lot of buy-in for this player. So I'm kind of like wondering if it's like, if you know they came together as a package deal, so I'm intrigued by that aspect in the sense that it's someone who knows what NQZ needs to succeed right out the gate. So they should be able to like mobilize him right away into the team, because he has someone, you know, he's such a skill coach in Zach, and then he has someone who's specifically in his corner who's going to be advocating for him to get, you know, positions he wants to play and get roles he wants to play. So it's a very interesting move, and it comes out of left field because I assume they would have gone with a native Spanish speaker, but they're kind of keeping with this mixed Portuguese, Brazilian, and Spanish lineup.
And speaking of Mnmzzz, you can literally see them on RooBet right now. They're playing pretty good against Furia, so you can literally kind of say the NQZ pickup's doing pretty good at the moment.
Yeah, they also they 2'd out Furia.
They just beat Furia 16-4 on Ancient.
Oh, they're playing Furia again?
Yeah, they kicked the shit out of Furia last week.
Yeah.
Like,
they beat them last week, and now they're playing them again right now for who gets qualified.
Oh, okay.
And they just destroyed them game 2, 16-4.
Wow.
Yeah, so speaking of Mnmzzz, they literally just got the ESIC lifted the suspension off the coach on Zach. We post the link.
The provisional suspension pending the completion of the investigation by ESIC independently, that we totally didn't ban him for the major because we desperately wanted attention and to be seen as we were doing our jobs.
This is crazy.
It just keeps getting worse, you know, like the whole Peacemaker thing as well. Like it just feels like they have completely botched whatever messaging that they needed, and they're just losing reputation and like respect from players now. And before like they can actually catch anybody doing something legitimately bad, they're going to like lose legitimacy from the big TOs, and then it's going to be a real problem, because I'm thinking less so about this case and more so about the future. It's like, then who do we turn to you know, be like, look, these people are match fixers. These people are like have regularly cheated with the coaching bug, and we can't actually put them away because nobody actually gives a shit about what ESIC says.
Getting heated over here. I'm getting mad. I'm getting angry because you know, this is one thing to it too, but obviously my white whale of many years is the NA match fixing investigation. And no matter how much I scream from the rooftops, no matter how many shows I go on and complain, nothing fundamentally changes. And it's like their priorities are just whack as hell. Like the fact that they definitely banned these players because they wanted to send a message that we won't allow cheaters at the major. But then you also hear allegedly like Zonic is on their list of people who's going to catch a ban.
What?
But they do it to these like less high profile people, and they're just like, oh yeah, like. But Zonic is provisionally being investigated, but not provisionally investigated in a way that results in a ban. But Zach and Peacemaker are being provisionally investigated in a way that provisionally results in a ban. But then when Peacemaker provisionally shows up with his team of lawyers, they say, "Oh shit, Peacemaker, you can just keep coaching. Don't worry about it, bud." And it's like they say like Zach could still be banned down the road, but what does that even mean? Like, does that mean that when 9Z qualifies to the next big S tier event, they're like, yeah, we provisionally discovered that you are a cheater again. Sorry, buddy. And then Zach is like, hey, Peacemaker, can I get those layers on retainer you use with all the character references and stuff? And then he gets unbanned. It's like they need to either ban someone or not ban someone. Like finish your investigation or done. This provisional banning bullshit, especially for I saw Mally said.
They could literally do the job, do the investigation, didn't do the work. Not just saying, like, oh, wait, we have some evidence here. Oh, let's ban his ass.
Well, Mally said, like, Zach allegedly cheated with the third person bug, I think, for, like, 1.5 rounds in the middle of, like, a pointless game. And you're just like, ban him for 3 weeks, but like you can't do it. Like you can't do it during the major and then unban him and then say, oh, we have the potential future of banning you like down the road. Like obviously the major was just like for optics to be seen as them doing something. I just don't think like this Ian and this Stefan guy are very like savvy at like optics or at management or anything. It just seems like they kind of just bumble around and they sort of react to stimuli, but they don't really have like their own like vision of how to like protect integrity in the scene. I'm very disappointed in them, and I'm kind of done with them personally.
I like what Lucid just said.
ESIC,
esports scam incoming.
Esports scam incoming.
Now is he like? Can he participate in the next major? Like he's completely unbanned.
Who knows?
Who knows? Maybe.
Oh, okay.
So he's no longer provisionally suspended. But if they do ban him down the road, I mean, we don't know how Valve what Valve thinks or what Valve does because they've only ever banned those coaches from the last ban cycle. Who knows if they'll apply those same bans down to cycle? But it's like,
it's gonna say, Zach, you gotta hire Peacemaker's lawyers. Just if you're listening, just hire some good lawyers.
I mean, it's like with Jerry. It's like with Jerry, I hate the fact that he's banned for 5 majors. Like that was completely an overreaction from Valve. It's all very messy. Like we don't know like how Valve like is feeling that day. Like it's if the person who's manning the Valve helpline is like, I'm gonna get these fucks.
Wait. There's a Valve helpline.
Mm-hmm. There is an email you can send, and there is a chance they will respond to you.
So
I have seen it before. It is true. It has happened. Like you can get communication from them if they're in a good mood.
Then they're.
All right, guys, just for time constraints, I'm just going to talk about the Na'Vi. They're going to keep SDY for Clone. And I'm not sure if he will be there permanent afterwards. But I know he's going to, like, I know Simple stated in an interview somewhere that he wanted SDY to play from at Cologne. So SDY is going to stand in for them at Cologne. Any quick comments before we move on about that?
I mean, I didn't watch much of Blast, so I caught up on it recently, but it worked. Like somehow the electronic move worked, same as an IGL, and I don't think SDY had too much impact across the event. It mostly seemed like electronic got every entry possible, every opening duel possible. I think he had like some crazy like 80% stat and like opening kills. But I think what they need right now is just stability, because you want electronic to like actually know all the pieces he's working with consistently, and going into a tournament as big as Cologne and having the chance that maybe potentially you could take the trophy there, that could be huge for just electronic in general, because that's what I think is most concerning about Na'Vi as a project. It's just like, is the IGL system going to work long term, and can Boomich's his hole be like relieved very quickly? Because right now it looks amazing. I know we've always seen there's a lot of situations where an IGL has their first stint and they look absolutely insane, and then their form drops off immediately after. But I want to obviously lean to the side that it's going to work, but I know you each have to kind of wait and see.
He was playing like the good anchor roles. They were playing the position to allowing him to kind of get comfortable, and he was pretty comfortable on those like the Mirage. He was playing on A, so
we have to give. Oh, go ahead, finish.
I was gonna say I think it's still a little honeymoon phase, and if it
Mhm.
keeps doing good past the honeymoon phase, I see him like if they're good in Cologne, I do see him getting picked up, being a permanent.
Yeah. To touch base, yeah, he's filling in a lot of Boomic's role on T side too, like going in first, and then followed by his teammates. And we have to give credit as well, to Blade Mastermind setting this up for Electronic. So
I mean, he definitely looks like he has confidence to keep Electronic in that role, right? Like he was saying, I think in a couple interviews that he thinks that he could be a better IGL than Boomich. So I don't know. I trust Blade more than any player on that team. I mean, obviously other than Simple, but that guy definitely knows what he's doing.
Gold moment.
Yeah. I also think about what you said with the stability. Like Simple has been talking about basically living in a suitcase, right, for however many months. I feel like the number one thing Navi need right now are stability. So getting like a stable player who is also a little bit older or like on the older side, I think that's just better than getting a young talent where you start to have to explain everything to him. Maybe wonder, is he gonna show up on time for every practice and blah 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 blah. Like you need some guy who just comes in there. His whole role basically, because Navi are so good, is just like don't get in the way. And you still need a really good player to not get in the way, right? Like I'm not taking anything away from him. I think he's phenomenal. But the point is more that like just if he doesn't fuck up a whole lot, if he just holds his own, Navi are probably gonna keep winning tournaments, So they just need that kind of stability, and that's what they haven't had. So I think it seems like a really good move.
To touch base, SDY doesn't seem like the ego guy. He seems like I'll take my role, I'll play my spots.
Yeah, he looks chill.
Work. And that's the type of guy you want because you have like Simple. He's the best. You gotta have an ego. And Electronic, he's up there too. Like and Bit as well. Like and you have the perfect glue guy just to sit there with Perfecto. Damn, you're gonna win. I love if they pick it, I'll love them to get picked up like that.
All right.
And the touch base, it's a little off the CS news, like the esports news, but like we had this big CSGO heist that just happened to like over $2 million inventory that just got freaking hacked. I will bring it up because it's CSGO skins is pretty much his CSGO at this moment. A lot of time on the side, just shows you how big the CSGO market is. Any guys' input on this at all before we go to the next topic?
I think I read that it's like a security breach, basically. Like the reason Steam has decided to, or like Valve have decided to like transfer back the skins, even though so the skins have been hacked, and then they've been sold on like some Russian skin site, and people have bought that, obviously, like bought the skins with real money, some of it cheap, some of it like sort of around the natural price. And now Valve are moving those skins back to the inventory of the guy who got hacked, because they are, as far as I understood, they have basically admitted to it being their fault. So that's like something completely new that we've never seen before. It's like Valve admitting their mistakes is already a little bit, but the fact that they, are actually doing all this to move it back,
because I read
it's pretty weird. Yeah,
I read is that the Steam authenticator, it was not removed, so he literally just did trades.
Yeah,
that's just fucking.
They definitely got in behind some kind of security that.
That's scary, and it's pretty cool that actually Valve given the skins back, trading them back. So it's good for if you have an inventory issue, people are scared, just give it back to you.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the ESL Pro League recap.
Paladin, you actually worked this event, right?
Yes, I was there. I was
how was your time there?
It's awesome. I mean, it's great to see that this initiative is happening. Just in general, I think that they could try to work with that with trying to put this event a little bit closer to Pro League itself. Because personally, I think that with the amount of space that it has between the two tournaments, it kind of loses the luster of a conference stage. And you kind of just keep it as a B tier tournament, which, I mean, let's face it, the teams there, it is somewhat of a B tier tournament. But if you want to have it as like big and exciting that, we have a new stage, you gotta have to promote it a little bit better instead of putting it during the spring final. But a lot of good storylines, a lot of good teams. Like endpoint qualifying was really interesting, just out of nowhere. KRB
and
doing
FTW.
work, and then And
Oh
yeah,
yeah,
and
that
then
was the
obviously
biggest surprise.
FTW, yeah, we were in the green room, and that was the number one thing that everybody refused to leave the studio because we wanted to watch all of their games, and it was very, very exciting to watch just a team for Portugal qualify for EPL, because that doesn't happen every day of the week, and it's exciting to see. They were the youngest team actually at the tournament, so even that was impressive enough.
Now, let's look at who qualified. So 6 teams qualified: Outsiders, Eternal Fire, MIBR, Endpoint, FTW, Heat. Obviously, Outsiders, Eternal Fire, MIBR were favorites to go in. Heat was actually favorites probably to qualify too, but they actually kind of struggled at the beginning and were able to qualify playing against their French rival men, Falcons, that actually went 3 maps. And then Endpoint managed to sneak in, and then, like you guys said, FTW, the biggest surprise. Biggest losers, Sprout, correct? Is Sprout here?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
They looked like a completely different team at this tournament. Like, before they actually came to conference, like, they were winning everything. Like, I think the only big thing that was a big loss was, I think they got eliminated from Repub League, but they looked so good. And Lonks, he looked just so comfortable as a young rookie, and I thought they were just gonna cruise through, but they just looked like they looked so confused, and it looked like it looked like a team that had never played on LAN before, and they had huge amount of jitters, and some of the players that you usually could count on didn't look actually comfortable at all, and a lot of the calls were all over the place. They never could get comfortable, and I hope that we can have them back at a LAN soon enough, because I don't think this really showed what they're capable of, because I think they're definitely capable of a lot more.
Any other disappointing teams?
I honestly like Order and Tyloo. I think are like have got to be super disappointed with not even making like the decider match. You know, like Order losing to FTW alongside Sprout, and then Tyloo, just the way they lost to Illuminar in the lower bracket.
Oh my
It was
gosh,
a 16-2,
that was
16-3.
bad.
It was just
so
like, that's worrying.
The rumor that I heard at that Tyloo game is that they couldn't eat before the game, so they actually all played on empty stomachs.
Okay.
But I'm not gonna like craft a narrative about something that I don't have confirmation about. But it was so upsetting to see that, like, a team that has so much experience, like, they've been to so many lands, they've been pracking in Europe as well.
back as well.
Yeah, it's so brutal to see that just fall by the wayside. And I know they weren't even supposed to be there. It was supposed to be Rare Adam instead of Tyloo, but come on, guys. You have to at least make the decider here and try to push some of the teams there. But it is what it is, I guess. I think Asian CS, Oceanic CS in general, is really on the downturn, and I don't really know what the solution is in the future. They really tried with the leagues that they've been setting up there, but I don't think like it's enough. I don't think they've been getting enough time, and when they come over here, they get like 2 best of 3s, they get knocked out and they go home. So like, I'm not really sure what the next like step is to make sure that these teams kind of come back into the scene, you know?
Yeah. Anybody want to make any last points about Pro League conference? No? All right.
Nope.
So we'll move forward to RooBet. Do a quick little recap here, even though there's one match going on still, right? Mouse and Eternal Fire.
9Z Furia.
Oh, 9Z Furia. Okay. But 2 groups have finished up, Group A and B. Group A with Big topping the group, and then FaZe beat OG in a close match today. And OG and Tropic were eliminated. Let's talk about Group A. The 2 favorites were expected to go through. Let's talk about FaZe though, how they're struggling.
I want more from the stars. Like, you kind of see like a couple of like firepower issues, which is really weird to say. At least personally, I think that they're losing duels, like duels that I don't think they'd necessarily lose 90% of the time, and maybe it's a confidence thing. Like, after getting dinged at Dallas, like their kind of pride has been struck a little bit, and they kind of have to refine themselves. I know we always talk about the whole, like, it's pretty easy. It's easier to get to number one than rather than staying at number one. And you can kind of see the growing pains of that happening right now. And I hope that they can at least get to the finals of this tournament, or outright win it, because they're going to need confidence to roll into Cologne. Because, man, so many teams that you could have considered like outliers at that tournament are now like actually contending. Like you think about Vitality making the final at Spring, and you think about Cloud9 winning Dallas, and you think about just all like you think about all these teams that you kind of cast aside now having a little bit more confidence to try to play on the big stages. FaZe really have their work cut out for them, and this group isn't necessarily giving me much confidence because they lost a big and then they barely won against OG on that third map. So I'm hoping that they stabilize.
I mean, the other thing is like, how much do these teams really care about like?
Yeah,
I know it's a big tournament, it has a lot of
Mhm.
good teams, but like, we already saw Movistar forfeit a match to go play ECL because like at the end of the day, RooBet, it doesn't qualify you for anything. It's just like some extra money, and it's an online tournament. It's not like you're playing to play in a stadium or something. So it's like it's like 10 days before Cologne or before the play-in at least. So it's just like for some of these teams, it's like a really good opportunity to prove. But I feel like FaZe they're just kind of there for contractual obligations almost. It feels like like, or at least some of the teams like FaZe and like even like C9 and at this point, it's like how much do they really care about it? Like obviously all the teams are going to try to win, but it's hard to know if they're actually going to put in like the extra 10 hours per week, to like watch the extra demos, like go over like every little detail and like all these matchups. So it'll probably be like some really good demos to watch after the fact because there's going to be some really good like fundamental CS being played that'll be a bit less anti-stratty than like demos from Cologne or something. But I don't know how it's going to be like
I
the
will
teams
say
in
that
full force, I guess.
I will say that the favorites probably have a little bit more time to like prepare because they skipped the play-in, and that makes things a lot easier. Like they don't necessarily have to put too much pressure on themselves. Like you think FaZe, C9, as you're saying, ENCE as well. Those big three kind of can rest on their laurels a little bit. So I think they've kind of had job done as far as making the playoffs, but I think that from what I've been gathering, this is just pure speculation. But you can just from the tweets and stuff that I'm seeing, it's like some of these players that really are just hungry to win a title, and just have that confidence going in. And I think that's just the number one thing right now on the day at this event. Like, who is going to be the most comfortable? Because there's a lot of pressure on a lot of these lineups to try and take this, try to take this away. Because, like as I've said before, like every team I think that we previously thought were kind of outliers are now like I can pretty safely say there's a pretty deep pool of teams that could potentially win Cologne.
All right, I'm excited to announce I've returned from
welcome back.
Unexpected death. Yeah.
But let's talk about Group A to finish off. Let's talk about OG. They played really well with this lineup. My concern is about Montu. He's a good opper, but I feel like he like sometimes goes missing when he plays higher ranked opponents. So hopefully we can see him pick it up in the future.
It sucks for him, right? That he has to fill the boots after Dexter played at spring finals. I mean, that's always something that will be difficult to overcome. Obviously, Rain over at Katowice after JKS won Katowice. Like that's always like all like when you like take back the spot that you originally had and you don't live up to the expectations, that always sucks. But in general, like it sucks that Mantu isn't a tier 1 opera because you can kind of see what would happen if they did have that like superstar player on an OG, like they were willing to spend the money to pick up a player like a Dexter. But we can very much see that they're opting more for like the Mal's route where you play the economy game and you pick up a player like Neofrag or you pick up a player like Fiku, and you don't really spend too much when you're getting players from like a Sinners or an AGO. But I think that there is potential for OG to do well, but if you don't have that like X factor, like huge superstar player, it's hard for me to give them enough credit that they'll repeat what they did at spring finals, because that definitely was a fluke in my opinion. I don't think that would have happened if they didn't have Dexter.
I don't think Montu is bad. Okay, you go ahead.
Oh no, you can go.
I was gonna say I don't know that Montu has been bad by any means. I mean, he was there.
No, he's not.
He was
bad.
like the top performer in Centropic. He did really well in the
yeah.
second series against FaZe. I don't think it's necessarily like they don't have like a good enough lineup necessarily. I mean, obviously it's a bit weird with, or it's a bit of like unknown how they're going to perform at like tier 1 / like top of tier 2 level with Neofrag and Fiku, but I don't know. I don't think there's any reason to doubt this lineup based off like the really small amount we've seen from them.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a new lineup, so we'll have to see what they can do in the future. Are they at Clone?
I think they're in the
play-ins. Okay, so we'll see what they can do there. Saga, you want to talk about Group B?
Yeah, but Group B. Let's see really fast. For Group B, I think everyone's kind of obvious. Cloud9 was probably going to win it.
Yep.
We all agree on that. In Astralis, I had Astralis, getting it by. But I think the big thing was all over Reddit was about Complexity blowing the game against Cloud9 with that infamous junior peak. That was pathetic. Anyone want to go on anything else on Group B? Or you all kind of saw like this kind of happening?
I know.
Yeah, I thought this was the most expected group of the four, personally.
Somebody brought it up where Movie Stars forfeited their match against Complexity to play another the challenger match, the playoff match. So
I mean, I respect it.
Yeah.
I think on spot is probably a little bit more important. But I don't think they made the final, so kind of sucks that now they're both out. They're out of both tournaments.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
I mean, getting a spot in conference, I think, is worth more most days than playing this like little. I mean, this event is a callback to when like CS used to be kind of shit, and you like would play just like online cups during COVID, like. Yeah. So I don't think they're really missing out on a whole lot by making this decision.
Somebody in chat said OG's not in Clone. This is their last event. Okay. Well, thank you for bringing that up, Sven. Let's go on to. Do we want to bring up Complexity? Do we want to talk about Complexity real quick? Anybody?
Man, I hate bullying Complexity.
I think we all agree. We don't want to bully them too much.
NATO?
No, I got nothing.
You want good terms on Complexity?
You want to be on good terms. You want to get picked
up. I'm on good terms there.
Okay.
I mean,
NATO,
it's also just
Complexity are going to be looking for an op soon.
There you go. Yeah, the job market's opening up.
That's true. Yeah. No, but for me with Complexity, it's just I don't know. I don't feel like we can really expect a whole lot from them at this current point in time. Like it feels like they are sort of in this tournament like this. They're not expected to go through their group, and I feel like the level that we're seeing from them right now is kind of the level we maybe going into the team also expected them to have. So I don't think it's been like really a surprising project. Though I would have, because I really like the organization, liked them to find more success than they have.
Because they have a good core of floppy thing. I actually like those guys. Just
yeah.
I guess one thing is
get NATO Complexity. We got to spread that.
I think Junior was actually their top performer today against Astralis too. So
I mean,
maybe he's going to start turning a corner.
His big games, I worry about him performing in those because I think that he puts too much pressure on himself to kind of take over the game, and I see a lot of repeaking from him, and it just feels like he puts too much pressure on himself to perform. And he's got a lot of potential. Like he's always shown that he has potential, but I think he puts too much pressure on himself outside of the game. That when he gets in, he decides to take too many rash decisions because he thinks like I need to prioritize myself and try to get like the multi kill here or there. But I don't know if it obviously it's not working long term. So I think that he kind of has to go back to the drawing board, hopefully down in like tier 2 NA and just like find himself a little bit more because he found a little bit of his identity before he moved on to tier 1, and then the whole Furia project kind of screwed him up a little bit, just having to play that like hyper aggressive, fast paced system, and now you have to scale it back again with a little bit more defaulty style of Complexity. It's like it's a really jarring transition for him, and I hope that he can kind of center himself a little bit more because I think that's the main problem with him. Like he hasn't found his identity yet. Like I think that there's a long road for him to find it.
I mean, I hate to say it, but
go ahead, Mnmzzz.
I think some people just aren't really meant for tier 1. I don't think some people are just good enough to be tier 1 players, and I don't really think there's been any evidence to the contrary for him. I think he's a perfectly serviceable tier 2 opper, like at the NA level, but I think his playstyle just isn't sustainable against good teams, and I think like his mental just isn't solid enough. Maybe if he goes and maybe if he like does like a Kusta and goes and plays like down in the the crypt for another like 2 years, he'll come back and be like sufficient. But as it stands right now, like he's not experienced enough, his mental isn't strong enough, and his playstyle isn't sustainable enough for tier 1 play.
That's a good point. I was gonna add to both your points about the mental, and like it's like everywhere. Everyone's just talking bad about him, and it's like probably like super hardening for him to probably read all that, right, Nato, as a pro player.
No, I love it, man.
Oh,
just fucking pissed when I had like a fucking blow up performance, like lose that last fucking map in the best of 3 and go straight home on the plane. And then you have to like sit there. You pay the $10 to get the internet on the plane back home from America. You're sitting there on your phone, you know, and the whole thing is just like fuck. And then you're like okay, you know what? We'll go back to the Danish scene. I go to the Danish scene. Then it's like okay.
Because because literally the day when they lost against Cloud9, Reddit was roasting.
Yeah.
YouTube videos roasting, and I'm like. It was funny for me because I'm like I don't know him, but personal guy, it's like, dude, man, it just sucks.
Yeah.
Whenever I've talked to him, he's been a perfectly nice guy. Like,
I
think he seems like a nice guy, and I just don't think he's the most like I don't think like when people tell him to like kill himself, he just like says it back to them. I think he's like the guy who it seems to me like he's the kind of guy who internalizes criticism a lot, and I don't know if like having people evolve that like having like 1,000 messages after every game like in Russian telling you to kill yourself is like something that he's like really like that he can like just deal with every day.
He needs to get that Jordan Game 6. I gotta prove it and I gotta frag him. He needs to build that.
Delete Twitter, I think, is usually the answer to the most
delete Twitter
problems.
and Reddit, social media in general.
Glare up, delete social media.
One of the best things you can do if you get like a ton of hate, like what I at the start of my career, I took it like super personal kind of, and I was like, oh man, people don't think that I'm a nice guy, I don't think I'm good and shit like that. I mean, the clear way of getting past it is just by saying, I don't care, but it's not so easy. But one of the things that really helped me a lot was that when I get those kind of like death threats and stuff like that, I just always take a picture and then I either post it on Twitter or send it to my team in like a WhatsApp or something. And then you all make fun of those idiots that just don't know what the fuck they're talking about, sitting and talking shit about you, And then you kind of like take the power away from it. And obviously I don't know what he's doing, but it's just, I urge you, Junior, if you're watching, or basically anyone who's struggling, like take it up with your team. If you have like teammates that trust in you and like believe in you and so on, they're gonna be like, yeah, those guys don't know what the fuck they're talking about. That's what I even remember when I struggled on Heroic, right? Mm-hmm. Like I would go to my team and I maybe didn't always feel so much part of the team, but still people were like, yeah, I remember there was this one guy on a Danish news site, he was just going in on me every single match. It would be like we beat Avangard, which is now like the outsiders, right? And it was like back then they were pretty good as well. We beat them to qualify for Cologne. We beat them like 16-12 and 16-3 or something like that, like 2-0. Mega important match. And then after the match, the only feedback this guy has is, oh, they win 63 and NATO still has negative stats or something like that. It's like, bro, what can I do? Like we won the match 16-3. I probably did my shit, And then it's like, me and BlameF, we just started like looking for that guy after every match. We tried to find that guy's comment, and we were just like, "Oh my god, this guy is like, I don't know." I feel like that's what you have to do. That's the best way you can get over it. Just like realize that those people that are writing that shit, they just don't know what they're talking about at all, and just like laugh it off, because it is honestly funny when people write like, "Oh, I hope this and this family member dies in a car crash" or something like that. It's like,
that's
who even writes something like that? Yeah, but who? Like, how fucked up of a person do you have to even write something like that? Like, it's just so, I don't know. It's crazy.
That's the perfect. Social media these days is pretty fucking toxic.
Yep. All right, let's move forward, guys, to Group C and Group D. We'll touch base really quick here for time constraints. Ents top the group 2-0, expected favorites in that group. Mouse and Eternal Fire are playing right now. It's map 3. And then Imperial bombed out 0-2. And with Imperial, this is like, what event? Like, I don't know. They've been playing like really bad for the past or all their events after the major.
I mean, you do say they bombed out though, but like the pushback. I mean, I don't think they're a good team, right? But the pushback on that a little bit, like they did play in the elimination match against Eternal Fire, and they did like they won map one, and then map two went to like
yeah,
quadruple overtime or something. So it's not like they weren't in the running.
Yeah,
I don't think this seems like sustainable, but they definitely didn't like.
Uh-huh.
If you believe the premise that Eternal Fire is a good team, which I don't know, but if you do, then it definitely like they didn't get rolled over by them at
Yeah.
all.
My problem with Imperial is their map pool. So Vertigo and Nuke, it seems like to be like their weakest maps, and the problem with that, how that came to be is, you know, Fur taking a break. Well, the old SK, their permanent ban was Nuke, and then Fur took a, or when they moved to MIBR, I think they vetoed Nuke and played Vertigo or something. Did they?
Yeah.
So, and then FNX hasn't played, you know, both those maps, and you know, just like they just look lost on both those maps. So that's like an instant like map win for whoever's picking it against them. So they need to work on those maps.
Yeah, I mean it's a huge problem. I think just in general they'll only perform in majors just because of the experience factor and just the plaudits that the major has and the amount of pressure it puts on younger players. And you can definitely see like the last the game that they actually qualified for Legends was like against Forza, right? And those players all looked so out of their depth
Yeah.
just because of experience factor and the pressure and all of that. But I don't think you necessarily will ever see Imperial get put into that position where like they get invited to a tournament like a PCC or like a RooBet or something like that, where they have lesser competition to go up against, but all of those players have at least one or two seasoned veterans that have kind of played around the tier one space before, and they're not necessarily phased by Imperial. And that's like the only real edge I can see them having over, because I think firepower wise, they all looked out of their depth. And as you were saying, Nart, their map pool isn't necessarily something that can flex. So what can you really turn to intangibly to actually get wins? And I mean, clearly the results speak for themselves that they're really struggling. So I think that it'd be nice to have them qualify for Rio, because I mean, hell, the viewership.
They have to. They have to.
The viewership will be amazing. I think they definitely can. The America's Armor lends itself to doing that.
For
but,
sure. So weak.
Beyond that, I don't really expect much. So I will see them at Rio, and until then, I don't think I will see much of them.
Any last input about Imperial, guys?
The only thing I want to bring up was that the round get cut off.
Oh my god.
That was funny.
Oh my god, all the players just typed immediately like, what the hell? Like, what's Okay, so let's go to Group D. Force 2-0. Wow. Okay, so in a group of Furia, Mnmzzz, Outsiders. That is
this is their environment though, right? Like this is where they do their best work online. They can just kind of chill. I think Forza is like really they play dependent on what environment that they're in. Like I think that they've done really well at all the online tournaments. As soon as they come on land, they like have extreme jitters, and you can just see like all of these players that are so young just don't necessarily have the experience to perform. But like this is the perfect group for Force. Like you have a team with like Mnmzzz bringing in a new opper. You have outsiders that are still kind of trying to figure out how to play with Norbert and Fame, and then you have Furia, who's also like kind of. I mean, you kind of expect them to win, but they also struggled at this tournament. So it's kind of like the perfect group for them to just like farm.
So yeah, Furia and Mnmzzz is still going on right now. I think they went to map 3. But let's just talk about Furia. Are they ever going to win a title? Can their play style, is it suitable to win them a title?
I think if they have the right circumstances with Safe, Quesarado, Yuri, Art, like and Drop, just like all playing at the peak performance, I could see it happening. But it's really hard, I think, for any team to just have all 5 players just playing at the top of their game for an entire event, you know?
I mean, and you also have to realize that their play style requires them to be like having their A game like 90% of the time. Like they really can't skate by, and you really can't have any weak links on the team. And so it's like if they can figure themselves out, maybe like I could see them winning a tournament where it's like a smaller event, like they don't have less days to kind of drop off in skill. But it's really hard to like see them winning like a Cologne or like like a Katowice or like one of those longer tournaments, because it just doesn't seem like that explosive of a style is something that can be replicable for that long, at least from the sample size that I've gathered for so long with the various cores that artists tried to bring forward. It sucks that it's not feasible, but I really want to see success like that, because they're genuinely one of the most unique teams that we have in the CS space, and like having a team like that succeed, well, that just brings more complexion to the space in general, and we just get to see a lot more different clashes when we watch. It's not like the same kind of styles clashing. It's that Furia brand that could also come through from other regions as well. So I wish for them to succeed, but I don't necessarily know if it's just...
NATO, input on Furia?
Yeah, I mean, the only type of input I have is just that, like, when you have such a volatile playstyle, it's like you can beat anyone, but you can also lose to anyone, and that makes getting titles pretty tough, because you can, I mean, you can, if you basically started in the final, having this kind of playstyle probably means that you will be winning a lot of finals. Like, because it is so volatile, it's just almost a coin toss if you win or not, basically. And that's what makes getting a title very difficult, because if every match is a coin toss, you have to have insane luck to make that happen, right? It's obviously a little bit more complex than that, but in like simple terms, right? So like, I do think we will see them winning titles eventually if they keep like being good. But it has to sort of be a tournament that is short, and that's also what makes sense with how I actually thought Furia was one of the best teams coming into the major. They had some crazy good results right before it, and then they were actually pretty disappointing at the major. And I think it's just because they had one of those tournaments where everything clicks, where the coin tosses go their way, and then the major wasn't one of those. So it's like there is the potential to win a title, but the chances of making like an era is like 0, because you will not have a consistently winning Furia team. If you have that, it, I imagine, won't be for a very long time. So it is possible to win titles, but there's probably the playstyle where you have the least sort of chance to win one, I would say.
All right. Thank you so much for your input there, NATO. Let's move forward from RooBet, and we're going to do some guests. We have some questions for all you guys. So we're going to start off with NATO here. Give me 1 second. NATO, were you like, we had questions for you here. Did you start off as a content creator?
I did, yeah.
And
I was always playing competitively, but like, content creator.
Your last stint was like a full-on team was with Heroic back in 2019. Is that correct?
Not quite. I was with Nordavind for 8 months in 2020.
Don't
And
forget Gorillas. You can't ever forget Gorillas.
Wait,
also
you played with Gorillas?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Flusha Sunny team?
Yes, it was Flusha, Sunny, Sergey, and then at the start it was Esperanto, but then they switched Esperanto with xCloud, yeah.
What happened? How long did you play with? You said 8-10 months, or how long?
I mean, with Nordavind I played 8 months. With Gorillas it was only like 3, I believe. But it was like, maybe the reason why I don't count Gorillas as like a real team for me is that like I started, well, I've most of my career been an AWP player, and I've been open to trying out other roles. In Gorillas, there wasn't a space for me as an AWP player, because Sergey was playing the AWP, even though he was actually a rifle player. And so I came in as sort of the anchor type player, which I was okay with. And then, I think actually I was playing really, really good. I was, I think, statistically one of the best performers on that team. And then after like half a month or a full month or something like that, they decided to change Esperanto for xCloud. And when that happened, I had to change some of my roles. And I feel like when I changed roles, because we sort of got him in and then had like a bunch of tournaments like the day after, I didn't have time to settle in the role properly, and I don't think I played that good. I also felt like, I don't know, Esperanto was a guy who was like creating a lot of space, even though he wasn't always talking a whole lot. Whereas xCloud, he was talking a whole lot, but he wasn't creating the same type of space. It ended up being me sort of having like the space creating roles, and I'm okay with that as well. But it was just like a little bit weird, and then it became even weirder as well because the like last bootcamp that we had right before they decided not to continue with me, I showed up at the bootcamp, and then when I showed up there, they just told me like, you know what, you're playing AWP.
Okay.
And then I was like, okay, I'm playing AWP. And then, we had like, I think it was like 7 days, maybe 7-8 days or something like that. And then we showed up there, the PCs that they had gotten, like 2 of them had like a graphics card that didn't work or something like that.
Oof.
So I ended up having to play like my sort of final trial where like now I'm the AWP at a bootcamp, majority playing that bootcamp on my gaming laptop, with like a 15-inch monitor. And it's just like one of those things where I feel like I don't know how that bootcamp, maybe they had already decided like, fuck, he's out anyway after. But then I just don't understand why would they even bother with changing my role. Because like from what I remember, Sergey anyway went back to AWP after that bootcamp. So it felt like it was like, I will give him a chance, show him what he's capable of. But then I ended up just playing my like the entire bootcamp basically on a gaming laptop, and I'm not the type of guy who's really tilt, I would say, but I was getting a little bit tilt when I'm missing like a shot that I just should not miss because my monitor is like this size. And yeah, after that, I went out and they wrote some very nice tweets about me, and I appreciate it. But it was one of those teams where I felt like I was just thrown around, and I wouldn't call it used, but I felt a little bit used in a way, in that I was like always the guy who had to change my roles. Like I came in as the new guy, I had to basically change what I was used to. Then a new guy came in, then I had to change all my roles and like learn all the new strats again, even though I'd only been there for a short time. And then like shortly after, for some reason they just died, okay, now I'm AWP and stuff. And then I mean, the fact that the PCs at the bootcamp didn't work properly and stuff like that, and I had to play on a laptop, that sucks. But I just felt like I honestly did pretty good at that team, and I was just pretty sad that I didn't.
Yeah.
I feel like that last bootcamp it could have gone differently, and I think if I would have played AWP on a proper PC, it's possible they would have kept me as an AWP, because I felt like I gelled really well with all the people in that team, and I had a good time. Yeah.
There was an org, right? It's not been announced yet, right? It's been like 2 years or what? Like
No.
What's the situation with that Mnmzzz?
I mean, like, so the team still exists, It's now
Tokyo Revengers.
It's Gorilla / Tokyo Revengers, and it's like weird. Like they have such good players in their team, and they're all under real contracts. It's Sunny, Oscar, MSL, Nodios, Supra, and LMBT as coach.
Okay.
But like I've talked to their manager, like Messiah, like a couple of times. He's always like, "Oh yeah, there's just like one delay that's keeping us from like announcing, or there's just like one thing that's stopping us from like, that's stopping us from like coming out into the scene or whatever." And it's like, it's so weird that you pay these players, because the whole point how esports orgs work is you pay players to either create results or create content for you, which justifies sponsors, which pays money back into the org, which keeps the whole cycle running. And it's orgs 101. But the fact that the org hasn't announced its existence yet after more than a year, that are just paying these players basically just to, like, all Tokyo Revengers plays right now is open. And they're crushing open because it's MSL and Oscar and Sunny and blah, 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 blah. But, like, that doesn't do anything for them. And the fact that they can't even be like, thanks for the win today, guys. Our sponsor, like, Unicorn Bet or whatever, our sponsor at, our sponsor at, like, 1xBet or whatever. Like, they can't do any of that because their org hasn't been announced. And it's so weird. Like, it's like borderline, like, money laundering scheme, basically. Like, that's how it feels sometimes with them. I don't even know. Like,
gotcha. Okay. Thanks for the insight there.
Add on to that a little bit as well. It's like I remember at the bootcamp, like they took some time with like 3 core members to go and decide on like a logo and a name and stuff like that. And I completely understand that I was not a part of it because I was just in a trial contract. And the same with xCloud. He was also not part of it. I think he might have been on a real contract, but still, it makes sense that we weren't there. But it's weird that I assume they actually went there to settle on a team name and a like design and stuff like that, and now like Flusha is not there and sagka is not there. So like the three of the like 2 out of 3 of the core members who, from what I know, had a meeting to like design the logo and the way they were gonna approach it with the organization are just not there anymore. So like I also don't understand what's the holdup. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to throw anyone under the bus or like say anything I'm not supposed to or something, but it's just like I feel like they could have already gone public with it, last year. It feels like that to me, and I just don't understand why not. Because I feel the same as you, Mnmzzz. Like, what's there to gain? Like, I feel like they're waiting for like one big result where they then can go out and say, you know what? In the background, we had this huge ass organization that's just been doing like, but that big win is just never really coming, And if that's what they're waiting for, it seems like I don't know. It might be better for the players to feel like they actually were representing something, like fighting for something. It's hard to say that you're fighting for Tokyo Revengers.
Well,
it
yeah,
might
it's, like,
help the
actually,
players' performance.
It's extra weird too because like they're not able to go on like social media and like be like, oh yeah, we'll get them next time with my org or whatever, or like do any of that like sort of normal org building thing, or have like something to really be proud of. Because when it was Gorillas, their logo was literally just a stolen stock image from like freestockimages.com, and then Tokyo Revengers is the name of like a manga or whatever, so they can't. The reason like no one uses that because like you're representing like you're representing basically copyright infringement. It's like you can't really be proud of that, and it's like for someone like MSL who's already won numerous S tier, like I mean Sunny, Oscar, MSL, these 3 players are like were tier 1 players not too long ago, and the fact that they're just like settling to do like just this pointless like pseudo org where all they do is play open, and when they play open qualifiers they get the shit kicked out of them. I feel like if they were an org, like they might get invites to like a RooBet, like, or to like a a relog event, or to like a relog event, or they might get like an invite to like ESEA Open, or be able to just play like Republic or something. But they don't really do any of that, and it's just a complete waste of time right now from my perspective.
So we'll see. I guess their next straw would be trying to qualify for the major, so we'll see how that goes. Now moving forward, NATO, after the stint with what do you have, Gorillas? What did you play for? Did you stand in for like Lynx v Vikings? Was it? Or is it somewhere?
I mean, I played with Lyngby before Gorillas,
okay.
From what I remember, but I did like I had a pretty rocky 2022. I had a team. I will do it short, but like I had a team that I felt like it was a step down, and it was fine because at the time I was like actually playing so good. Like in practice, I was just shitting on everyone. We were even practicing like big and stuff like that, and we didn't have like that great of a team, but just individually, I just felt like I was outdueling everyone at that moment. And we had an organization that said they were gonna, get us on contract, and they were willing to pay sort of what I was expecting or like hoping for, which is honestly not a lot. Like I'm not a super expensive guy or something, but we practiced for like a full month, tried out different like people and stuff, made sure to get it lineup we were happy with, and then after a month they just stopped responding. And then 2-3 days later they came back like, yeah, we just signed a bunch of new sponsors, and then like now we have even more money. And then we said like, great, okay, let's do it then. And then they just never responded again. So like that was a month of time waste. And then I went to another team. I can say what it was. It was Finest. They were testing like 4 different guys as IGLs, and it's been a while since I was IGO, so I thought like, I mean, I want to do it because it's a pretty good team and there's some decent pieces there to work with. They decided that I was among the 2 best, but they decided to first try with the other guy who was golden, and something happened where they didn't go for golden. I don't think like it was not something personality wise or something, but I think there was some some issues maybe with like org to player. So they decided to try me, and it honestly went pretty well. We played like some matches and we won a lot of them, and I was putting in like literally 12 hours a day, like playing the whole day, also playing individually, doing demos, everything. There was like a short time where we didn't even have a coach. I was just like doing everything, and I was kind of new to IGLing, at least like again, I could say. And then they told me like, yeah, you know what? It's like the 28th in the month. We want to give you a contract. And then we didn't play a single match until the 1st. But then on the 1st, they told me like, actually, it's not happening anyway. We're going with Golden again. And it's just like 2 times in 2022 where like in a row that 2 different organizations kind of promised me a contract and then just fucked me over.
Yeah.
So it really sucked. And then I went to the OG Academy trial actually just to try something different. And I think I did pretty good, but they decided that like I was too old.
But you're allowed allowed one player to be old, right? Is it?
Yeah, I'm honestly not quite sure because they told me like for any other team we would pick you because we think you're good. Like I got an email saying that, but then they said like you're too old, and it's like that's the one thing I can't change, right? So it's fine. But so I've tried, actually to get back into CS, but I feel like even when I'm trying to take these steps down, it's just like somehow not working out for me, and that's where I am now. But I think I'm getting some interest for some decent teams and like decently sized orgs and stuff. So I might have something in the pipeline, but we'll have to see if it actually turns into something.
In the meantime, you're making content. As I've seen you make content for that website, Plexi. What's it called?
Play.gg.
Yeah, Play.gg. Yeah. And then you're also making content on your own YouTube.
Yeah, and streaming a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Have you thought about coming to NA? Like, would you play for an NA team or in the future or coach anything like that?
I'm honestly open to most things. I think I would be a better coach than I would be a player, just because I think I am sort of smarter than I am a great aimer. And so, like, if any team ever wants to take like the chance on me as a coach, I think I would do a very good job. I'm like really hardworking. So that's something I would be down to. But also, as you mentioned, like going to NA, I'm pretty movable. So like I've already kind of talked that over with my fiance, and if it were to happen at some point that a team from another region would want me, I'm fairly certain that like we would pack our bags and go there together. So I'm down for most things, but really I'll just listen to any offer that people have and then answer accordingly.
So you're saying that when Stewie goes to Valorant in like a couple weeks, you're open to an EG?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm at least open to a conversation. I would actually like to be a part of one of those. I also wanted to do that with North, for example. I would love to join one of those. It sounds a little bit bad, but like one of those sinking ships and come in as the difference, because like I know I can do it. I've changed the mindset of so many players, and all of my teams that I've played in basically have hit their peak ranking when I've been there, and then obviously gone a little bit further sometimes after. But I know I can change that mindset, and I would like to challenge. So yeah, if they would come to me and approach me, I would love to play with Rush again as well. He's a phenomenal player and a phenomenal guy. So yeah, I would definitely listen if they came, but I'm not sure I'm top of the list, to be honest.
All right. That was NATO's interview. Clip it and ship it to all the orgs, guys. Now, has there an option for you to ever go to Valorant? Have you ever touched that option?
You touch that like it's a disease item.
No, like listen, my agent,
Jerome?
he was Jerome, exactly. He was saying that there was the possibility of going to Valorant, and I think at the start of Valorant, if you switched, it was like you just would walk straight into a professional contract because everyone wanted people and everyone wanted a Counterstrike player because it's so closely related to the game. I don't know. My true love is for Counter-Strike, and I don't think that will ever change. I haven't really considered it. And I think in total in Valorant, I think it's a pretty cool game. I've never ever watched a professional match, and I think in total I have less than 20 hours of playtime. Like I'm a Counter-Strike guy through and through, and I think I'll stay that way. So yeah, there has definitely been the opportunity. I've said no to paydays in Valorant when I've been instead stuck on like a free agent sort of bench for months on end. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I would go there for the money and not because I would want to, and that's just not what motivates me. So I've decided to stay in Counterstrike, and yeah, I would much rather work as a player or as a coach or as a caster or as a whatever. Like just inject the Counterstrike into my veins, then I'm happy.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Now I got a segment called Rapid Fire. So I got a list of questions, and you have to answer as fast as you can with these questions. All right, ready?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, here we go. Favorite map?
Nuke.
Favorite teammate?
Play Freeze Tech.
Worst teammate?
Oh, no clue. No clue. I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Favorite sport?
Football.
Favorite club?
Real Madrid.
Favorite player?
Blame for East Tech.
Or from the sport. From
the sport.
Yeah.
Okay. Probably Modric or Benzema.
Okay. Favorite skin?
Dragonlore.
Favorite food?
Pizza is a good guess.
Favorite TV show?
I like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but my favorite one is Breaking Bad.
Okay, good. Favorite anime?
I don't watch anime, so all of them.
Favorite Valorant agent?
Ask some of those.
Favorite CS moment?
Yeah, I think probably winning CS Summit for me personally, like with Mousesports. That was amazing feeling.
And you guys played the final with your coach, or was that like one map with your coach? What happened? Tell us the story real quick.
Okay, yeah, well, we go into it, and Kerrigan had some visa things he had to fix because they were going to some maybe Starlight event or something like that in, I want to say, Ukraine or something. And so he had to go and fix that before, because that was like a bigger event than Summit, and they were like on a roll. And yeah, so he said to me, I didn't know it before, but like before the final, he was just like, okay, listen up, I gotta go fix my visa. If this game goes too long, like I will have to go because I need to catch this plane. And no one else had this thing with the visa, so it was just him. And then we played first map, and I think we're actually leading like 15-10 or something like that on Mirage, I think it was. And yeah, all of a sudden it goes to overtime, and I'm just thinking like, fuck, we just lost the final, because like, you know, it's over if Kerrigan is going. Yeah. He plays up that map, and then we play the second map, I believe.
Wait, did you guys win the first map?
Yeah, we won the first map, luckily. I think like 19-16.
Okay.
And then second map was Vertigo. We played that already against G2 one time in the tournament. We lost, I think, 16-2. And then we played it again, and we lost 16-1. And then we went into Train as the third map, but Kerrigan had to go. So we played with Rajin, and he like started calling and stuff like that on the T side. But I think at some point he started being more focused on just running in front and creating the space and stuff. So towards the like, at least that's my side of the story. The last like 5 or 6 rounds on T side, I was like taking over as the caller kind of, and we won some of the like key rounds towards the end of the T side, and then on the CT side, yeah, we had Robs, we had Chris J. So it's like we had Frozen. It's like how can you even lose if you have a coach? Like there's too many good players. So yeah, but it was crazy, 16-14. Yeah.
All right, well that's it right there. Appreciate you answering all those questions. Now Saga is going to go on with he's got some questions for Paladin.
Hey Paladin, what's up?
What's up, man?
All right. Is there any interest of you being a coach in the near future for any org? If an org picks you to be a coach, would you be interested?
I mean, I'm always open to it, but it's something that I'd rather do like after I've kind of seen all I can see with the analyst, the desk work and stuff like that. It's been so hard for like broadcast talent to move over to the coaching role or like an analyst role or like any role in an actual organization. And so I don't want to brave that ship just yet. And I'd like to eventually do it. Like that's a dream of mine for sure, but that's something that I think I'd see a little bit later on.
So what are your future goals? Would you like want to like try to like move up, go into like the tier 1 events, like the big ones, like the major and stuff like that? Would you love to do that?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like Rio would be fun. I mean, just the majors in general, STR tournaments, that'd be really fun. I've had a lot of fun just doing the smaller stuff, the challengers and the conferences. Like it was very fun to be a part of that, and that's definitely something that I want to keep doing. And hopefully, the big goal is just to work a major at some point or another. There's a long road to get there. There's a lot of a lot of like our talent pool is the biggest one in all of esports, and we'll just have to see. I mean, it's sometimes it's not necessarily even like the level that I put out. Sometimes it's just the level that is out there in just in general. And so, hopefully I can work a major sometime.
Like Rio, like the ESL Rio, they asked you to be an analyst. Who would you love to work with?
I think the big three that I like to work with right now: Maniac, Maui Snake, and YNK. Those are guys at the top of their game right now, and love to probably work with them.
Do you actually play the game like CS like nonstop when you're not doing analytical work?
No, I do. I used to play a lot, but I wasn't very good at it. It was I mean, just in general, I'm a person that studies like whatever I love doing a lot more than I actually do the thing.
You're like NarT.
Yeah, I'm like NarT, and
Yeah.
I study the game a lot more. I watch like too many demos. I mean, you can never watch too many demos, but I just watch a lot of demos, and I love making content, and that's just something that I've been doing regularly. Like I always have CS on somewhere or another all day, every day, and that's just what I've been enjoying doing a lot more. And I've kind of figured out that it's not my I don't have the hands to play competitively ever. So
The brain to do it.
I'll just stick to watching the game and talking out of my ass about it.
You should get NarT to do a video so you guys can create a good ass concept video in the future.
For sure, collab.
Collab right there. What events you working up? What events you gonna work in the future?
I mean, mainly right now it's just the challenger events. I won't be at Valencia, but there is Rotterdam, Melbourne, those two in the future. Those are in the pipeline. But beyond that, it's really hard to say. Like a lot of the tier 1.5, tier 2 space is kind of opening up now that COVID is going away. So 2023 is going to be very interesting, just because I think a lot of those lands are going to pop up, and you probably see me at a couple of those as well. So it's hard to say because we don't really have many events beyond like your EPLs and your blasts and stuff like that. And I'm not at that level yet, or I'm not considered to be at that level yet, and rightfully so. So right now it's mostly those challenger events that I'm basically going to look at a little bit more.
It's good to know, and thank you so much for answering some of those questions, man.
Yeah, of course.
All right, M&M's.
Yeah.
All right, we got a general question. What are your goals like in the CS scene?
What are my goals in the CSGO scene?
Yeah.
I guess just for now, just keep doing what I'm doing and try to grow into esports as much as possible. I don't know. It's like I'm always looking at new opportunities. There's some projects I'm looking into in the future. But for now, I'm just kind of committed to the Dust US project. We've been breaking some big stories over there, so it's been pretty exciting recently.
How would you explain like how the journalism in esports, how is it growing? Is it like becoming like break it down, like how is it
in general or in North America?
Yeah, do NA then in general. Kind of do both.
I mean, in NA, I think in NA everything's shrinking. It's a weird space with NA right now. Like there's definitely less to cover than there used to be in terms of like our domestic scene. But I think globally, I don't know. It's hard because like I definitely think esports journalism has got more prestigious and it's more personality driven. But at the same time, I definitely think that in terms of where journalism and esports is heading, I think it's becoming more like content creator than just like hardcore iconoclastic journalism. I think people are more concerned with like very clickbaity types of content and very like drama driven content, which isn't really stuff that like I don't consider to be like hardcore journalism, but it's definitely like helping to grow the space. So it's there's positives to it and negatives to it.
Like, would you love to work for HLTV in the future?
I'd love to work for HLTV. I mean,
if they offered it,
if they offered it to me, I mean, I would love to work in any position that was offered. That would be that would advance my position in the scene. But it's just one of those things where it's like I'm very specifically knowledgeable about NA, and as a result of NA collapsing in on itself, there's not a lot of opportunities for there's only so many articles you can write about complexity losing and EG having roster issues before it just kind of gets like to the point where you need to branch out and to talk about something else.
Ever considered like going to EU and writing some of those articles like that?
It's been an idea. And there's some stuff I've done about that. Like I do occasional reporting about European stuff if it comes up and it interests me. Like I remember I did some reporting on about Finest, NATO's former team, at the start of the year or at the end of last year. I did some reporting about them getting golden and them getting koi. I mean, it's once you break into a scene, it's relatively easy to get like roster leaks and stuff about that, and hear stuff from behind the scenes. It's just sort of making that initial like break into the scene where once you're in, you're in.
And also, thank you for joining the podcast.
Of course.
And NarT has some questions for Sol.
SolGoat, got some questions for you. How long you been IGLing? Have you always been in IGL?
So I've pretty much always been in IGL. I think there's been like a couple seasons of ESCA where I haven't been calling, but just about every season I've had since like season 19, I've been calling.
What's the farthest you've made it so far? Like, have you made MDL or Premier?
Never made like Premier ECL as it is now, but made a relegation tournament. Got a series away, a couple rounds away in season 39, and then could have potentially gotten the invite slot, but instead it went to Dabs' project with Orglis, which
what was
can't
your
really
team
complain
called at the
about
moment?
it. That was Brazen with
okay.
pretty much the same roster we have now, but with a different opper at the time.
And do you have aspirations to become pro?
I mean, of course, like anyone that's like playing the game at a decent level, of course, has aspirations to become pro. Like, I don't know how realistic it is, especially in NA with like the current scene of things, but of course, everyone has aspirations for it.
And then my last question is: you used to write for Rush B. Do you have any aspirations to write?
He also wrote for Dust 2. Yes, I'll have you know.
Oh wait,
I did.
Right, I did not know that you wrote for Dust 2
for about a month before. But yeah, I don't know. I think like the writing's it's like kind of like interesting and fun to do, but at the same time, it's really hard to keep up with when you're trying to play and work a job outside of CS. It's just kind of it's one of those things where it's kind of fun to do, but just like at the end of the day, I just don't really have time for it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show, answering these questions, and good luck with the rest of your season.
Thank you.
So last two topics I want to go over is game changes. So 2 weeks ago, I want to say, Valve or the devs changed the M4 A1S to 20 bullets and with 80 in the mag. And since then, we've seen a couple pros actually switch over. I think Furia, being the main team, had like 3 or 4 players switched over. And then I think Twist switched over too. A couple players have been experimenting with it. Have you guys experimented, or what are your thoughts on this change here?
I tried to fiddle around with just the A4 in general, and it is just an inferior weapon. Like the TTK is just higher, and that's just how it is. But I think, in theory, I was thinking that a lot more supportive elements, the players that are anchoring a little bit more, would probably try to play with it, just because the 20 bullets isn't enough to like hold their own for too long. And I've been seeing like a couple of anchors use it here or there at RooBet. And I think that overall that's probably all that's going to happen, because objectively the A1S is still really strong, and it might nullify some spams here or there, but even still, like it's still a really, really good weapon, and I don't think there's much reason beyond like an anchor position to really give it up.
I think the main advantage I can see of using the A4 over the A1S is if it's just like for like specific like setups on specific maps. Like if you want one person generally taking first contact and like baiting for another person, like for maybe like a site player on Inferno, or the pit player, I guess, if you want to do it the other way around, just like having one of them have an unsilenced gun, one of them have the silenced gun, so it's like all the attention goes one way, and then the second person, the crossfire, whoever's taking second contact, has the silencer. I could see like that being like one of the main like talking points for using the A4 over the A1. But like even then, I feel like that's just a bit of a stretch, and it's just like having that extra flashbang every round is just going to be worth more.
NATO, have you played with either or made the swap or?
I didn't make the swap initially, but I went back. I agree with Sol that like the extra flashbang is just sort of too valuable for now. But I'm hoping with like a few more tweaks that, and that's kind of maybe where I would, yeah, it's where I'm hoping it will end, but also like it's almost there just now. I think if they had the same price, that's ideally what we would see is that like you have the anchor players playing the A4 because it has more bullets, right? And then you have the rotation players who typically get smoked off play the silenced M4 so that they can more easily spam. That would be like I think an interesting dynamic because then it's like yeah, the rotation players they're playing this weapon that like if you try to smoke me off, I still have sort of a counter, and the anchor player is playing a weapon where they are very rarely going to be smoked off in some angle where they are exactly there on timing to spam the T's through or something like that. For them, it's more like I need to have the ability to kill multiple people at once, kind of. So like that's where I hope it ends, but I don't think it's there just yet. And I think like still the silenced M4 is better just because of the price. But if the price was the same, we might see like this switch to where rotation players play the silenced or like an anchor players play the A4. Yeah.
So what changes would you want to see? The price?
Yeah, mainly the price. And I feel like if the price was the same, for me, I think it might even be okay that the silenced M4 had 25 bullets again. Like, I feel like it would at least. I'm worried that if we go back to them having the same price now, that then people would just immediately jump ship and go over to the A4. So like, I feel like you first have to try with the price, and if everyone just switches over to the A4, then you know that like, okay, now it's balanced the wrong way again. But I don't understand why they take so long to make changes, because it's like I feel like the silence M4 had already been broken for a couple of months and everyone knew it. So like, why even pick up an AKCD side if you can have like a weapon that has almost the exact same properties, but just can also shoot through smoke? That's ridiculous, in my opinion.
Yeah, the CSGO devs, they take a little bit longer to update the game.
Yep.
And so the other change was Ancient. So the new Ancient's actually being played in RooBet. Still heavily CT sided. I haven't seen anything crazy on T side. Maybe
I'd say the T side's a bit improved. Just like with how much easier it is to take that first entrance into cave without the left side.
Yeah.
And like A splitting is also just a bit more of a threat, so it makes it just like a bit harder to just kind of completely neglect A like you could with the past version, where you could like there are just so many teams defaulting with like 3B 2 mid, and then they'd play retake A and just rotate one in late. And I think that's a bit harder to do right now, which just kind of makes things a bit easier on T side.
Yeah, I think you can hold the bomb site. I think you can hold the bomb sites a little bit easier as well as like a T in a post plant. Like you don't have much to worry about. I think you can get the bomb down a little bit easier. Not having that extra cave angle and or sorry, the CT temple angle on 8 site. It feels like there's a little bit more options for the Ts, and I'm at least seeing halves now where like a T side can potentially win it. Like there's actually a possibility for that to happen now. And before it just kind of felt like the map was just against the T's. Like you literally couldn't find a way, regardless of how you mid rounded or managed to get the bomb down. Like just the way the map was played, you couldn't really hold on to your own for quite some time, and you needed that T side pistol, or else the map kind of just ran away from you. But now I think that Ancient is just instantly a better map now because there are just more options for the Ts. But I think that Cologne will be the true test. I honestly don't even think Cologne is a true test. Maybe even after the player break when people have had a little bit more time to play around with those changes and see how different those timings are.
Was somebody going to say something before you?
I think I was just trying to say that like I just made a video on it actually for play. And what I noticed like as one of the main takeaways was that teams are willing to now go A main contact which I think is quite interesting because before there was just like if you just did a main contact, there was like the left side behind the deep box, then there's like the big box, then there was one tempo angle, the other tempo angle is the boost, people playing side, and then donut, and then also CT. And now it's like if you smoke off the one side of tempo, you can be sure, okay, tempo is like there's nothing they can do. Then you can like Molotov the back left, and you can have flashes in your back. Then if you also have a CT smoke, there's really only the side, and the boost is kind of easy to clear, and then donut, which you could also smoke off. And especially when I see the A splits coming in as well, if you just think about it, because I only really got it from when I watched the demos, if you have people coming through donut, the only things the donut players need to worry about is like CT, which is very easy to smoke off from outside donut, so you can do that before. And then like close right and directly behind the side boxes, basically. Not tempo, and the whole left side, it's like a main can kind of clear that. Like there's so few places if the T is A split where the CTs can now actually play. So I think we'll be seeing a whole lot more that CTs, if they lose like donut control, they will actually start smoking donut off on the sort of A side entrance, if that makes sense. Like before you didn't really see that because you could still just play with an AWP tempo, or you could play like CT and stuff, but now it's just way more limited. And yeah, it makes like A splits and A main contacts way stronger. The CTs have very little room to maneuver. So I think it's actually a huge change, but teams just haven't really understood how to like utilize it yet.
Yeah, I actually like Ancient. Like it's a great map in my opinion, and I love the changes that they're still doing because it's gonna be like a staple.
I agree.
Yeah.
And speaking of some changes, I saw in the RooBet Vinny and Art working around the R8. Why are they doing that? Any input on that?
The only reason I've ever thought of using the R8, and I used it for like a week or two in scrims at one point, was it is good at wall banging stuff, and it's like a cheap scout. So if you're just like trying to go for wall bangs or smoke spams, you can get like a lucky scout shot in, kind of.
Like
but
a pocket
it
scout.
still
Are they just?
it still only has like 16 total bullets, so there's
just
just like no potential of winning a head-on fight with it. So I don't know.
You just think they're just fucking around? Very
Probably.
much.
I mean,
Well,
it just Deagle's just so much better
It's
in like
much
every
better.
way. Like at the pro level, that there's just so little time for that to actually cock back and shoot a bullet.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, maybe in like matchmaking you could see it work, and you like in like very low level play, but not in high tier. I don't think it's possible.
And the last thing before we end, the whole update bullshit this week. People were speculating the source too. Is that ever gonna come out?
One day.
One
I'm
day.
sure. Like it's obvious. Like you have to be like purposely like not paying attention to think that they like
That's what I think so,
haven't
too.
that they have like not been working on it. But whether that like means it's gonna be like soon is like I don't know.
It's gonna happen like when we're not doing anything in August during player break on a Friday when we're all outside and it's gonna drop. Something like that could happen. But we're not.
I mean, knowing Valve, they'll do it like right before the Rio Major or something like that.
Probably.
Like I really don't think that they know how to time updates like that, and we are going to get it when we really don't need to have it, and I don't know how we're going to handle it.
Anything else?
I think that's it. I think that's a good we're gonna close the show now. I'll give last words to each one of y'all. Saga.
Man, thank you guys for showing up, man. Really appreciate it.
NATO, floor is yours.
Yeah, just thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Sure, thanks,
nice
man.
to talk Counterstrike.
Of course, you're welcome back anytime. Paladin.
Yeah, it's good to have a big panel of people across the scene. You know, we don't necessarily have panels like this where it's just like people from like all different corners. So yeah, a lot of fun.
Thank you, man, and I hope you get more gigs because you're definitely a potential really good analyst. So
thank you, man. Thank you.
Mnmzzz, sorry for fudging your name at the beginning.
Oh, that's okay. I understand it. It's learning curve. Exciting. I guess all I have to say is exciting news.
Okay.
9Z just beat Furia.
Awesome.
Dang.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't have any like strong like ruminating thoughts, but I like 9Z. I like when they win. Furia do better. That's kind of all I gotta say.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. You provide a lot of good info. SolGoat.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure to be here.
For sure. Thank you, man. Good luck with the rest of your playoffs. And that's going to be the end of the show. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Till next time, Not Out Here. Peace.